Eric Adams just passed the halfway mark in his term as mayor. He's got 2 years to go, but already people are seeking to topple him. The Point starts right now. Scott Stringer is a familiar face in New York politics. State lawmaker, Manhattan Borough President, City Comptroller, a man who lost the mayor's race to Eric Adams. Now he wants to try again. What possibly is in your mind that you would want to try again? Last time when you ran, you only got about 5% of the vote. But you want to take this guy on again? Really?
Look, I love this city. And I love public service. And I think this city needs a new direction. We are not well served by this administration. And if I have a chance to move the city forward, to invest in education, to invest in housing, to invest in the issues and people that we feel strongly about, then it's a campaign worth waging.
So what direction do you want to take it in exactly?
Well, look, it's no secret that housing is down, crime is up, education's flat.
Wait. Here's the bottom line. Crime, you may say, is up, but really it's down in 5 of the 7 categories, including, by the way, murders and shootings. So what you're talking about is shoplifting and grand theft auto.
Felony assaults. Crime is up from before COVID. And the part of the problem is we're not really addressing the fundamental issues surrounding crime. Yes, you can throw a bunch of overtime and create a situation where the cops are being tired, and at the same time we're not building infrastructure to keep our city safe. We haven't aligned criminal justice issues and police enforcement with mental health initiatives that are actually working. I know that. I'm the former chief financial officer of the city. I can tell you what the numbers are. So the reality is crime is up for average New Yorkers, people who take the subways, people who are in the streets, and more importantly, or equally important, is housing is down. We're not doing what Robert Wagner, the former mayor in the 50s, did and build public housing, or other mayors like Ed Koch, who transformed the city by smart housing investment. This is a time for us to think big and do big, not simply have a minimalist city hall, and that's why I'm considering running. That's why I'm going to take my expertise as a controller, as a borough president who worked on land use issues, and I'm going to put forth proposals that I think will make a difference for New Yorkers.
So let's pick all this apart. You started out with talking about crime. So if you were elected mayor, what would you do with the police budget? Would you reduce the police budget? Would you increase the police budget? Would you hire more cops? Because they're retiring in droves. The NYPD is at a low level. What are you going to do?
Look, I think we have to come up with programs that are actually going to make a meaningful difference for New Yorkers.
So that means you hire more cops or you don't hire more cops?
I think what we do is an assessment that says, look, it is better to hire more cops than simply create hundreds of millions of dollars in overtime.
Which is, by the way, what's happening now.
That's why this is not working. That's why we're not seeing a reduction in crime. Look, you and I can argue the numbers, that's true, but let's put it this way. Crime has been basically the same. There has not been a grand reduction. Shootings and murders, by the way, are down, but that's a national...
They're down legitimately.
But that's a national phenomenon. What impacts New Yorkers is the assaults on the street, the issues in the subways, and also we have a mental health crisis in the city, and you see it play out every day. When I take my son on the subway to go to his school, I see it, and I see the broken faces and the people who are just languishing on the streets.
So what would you do?
Where is the budget that invests in these kids?
What would you do about mental health?
Well, first of all, I would make sure that we invest once again in our agencies to build capacity to take on these issues. Every time there's a pronouncement, it's minimal at best. And what I would do, as I did in the last campaign, is offer forward-thinking solutions that will align the mental health activist community, the professionals, the health professionals, with our partners in government through agencies. Right now, this administration has a great solution for everything. When there's a crisis, you know what they ask for? We need a czar. We have a rad czar. We have a public realm czar. We have czars that look at czars. They're all fired on day one, and I'm sure they're very nice people.
You're getting rid of the rat czar?
The czars are gone. The guard.
The rat czar is gone?
And by the way,
care about rats.
yeah, but when rats are up, when rat complaints are up 3%, one person is not going to exterminate all the rats. So we have to go back and invest in our agencies.
Let's talk about what you would do about mental health, not just say you're going to do things. You know, you've got some ideas. The bottom line in a lot of these mental health programs is that there's a shortage of psych beds, which, by the way, falls on the state as much as it falls on the city. What are you going to do about that?
You have to play chess, not checkers in Albany.
What's the difference?
The difference is, and you know, Marcia, I'm a former state assembly member.
I know that.
You got to get up to Albany and you got to organize the business community. You have to organize people to make the case that these beds are a priority and necessary. You also have to go to Albany and make sure you get your fair share. The problem with this administration, they don't have those relationships at Albany. It's obvious that they go up and come back with nothing.
He's a former state senator.
They don't have a relationship with Joe Biden, and that's another problem. You go to Washington, you can't even get in the door of the White House. This is why we need to have a new direction and new leadership. Leadership that's experienced, leadership that knows how to navigate the bureaucracy, but also to create programs that are actually going to work for everyday New Yorkers. And by the way, look at this budget dance that the mayor did with himself. It was unbelievably a complete waste of time. You can't have a budget that cuts education when kids need education. You can't have a budget that doesn't truly invest in the things that New Yorkers need. And for God's sakes, you can't love migrants on Monday, hate them on Wednesday, blame them for the fiscal issues of City Hall, and then don't even mention the word migrant or immigrant at the state of the city. What are we doing?
So let's go back and let's start with some of the issues you raised. Police. What's the police department going to look like under a Stringer administration? Bigger, smaller?
We're going to roll. We're going to look at best practices around the country. There are so many incredible initiatives, and that we're going to bring them to New York. Second, we're going to make sure that our police department has the tools and the resources they need.
Well, they have the manpower. They have the manpower.
Well, we're going to look at how we invest in that person power, men and women, people who grew up in the city, who want to be police officers. But we're not going to stop there. We're simply not going to flood the zone. That's easier. That's easy, and it's not as effective. We're going to truly align how we solve the issues of homelessness, how we solve the issues of people with serious issues living in our subway system. And you know what we're going to do? We're not just going to build psych beds. We're going to build the kind of low-income housing that has been the great tradition of our mayors.
All right, so let's talk about housing, because that's really an important issue. So, in Albany, the governor has proposed something like a 421A rebate or tax rebate to help developers build housing. Would you support that?
I do support it, but I also support targeted housing development, because we have to also build.
Who pays for that?
Well, part of this is the subsidy. We've always paid for it. You know, a budget, a city budget.
Developers need money.
Well, a budget is always about priorities and the vision of whoever is in office. My vision is to use the flexibility of our budget to invest in affordable housing. Under a Stringer administration, we are going to build Mitchell-Lama 2, finally. I have a broad proposal to take advantage of city-owned land, bring in the next generation of developers, not-for-profits that can build the way we did in the 60s and 70s. Wagner built public housing. This can happen. Ed Koch rehab buildings in the South Bronx and around. You know, people say, oh, well, what can a mayor do? I'll tell you what a mayor can do. A mayor can do the biggest things in the world on housing. Nobody is better prepared to create a housing program, because I've done it all my life. These have been the passionate issues I started as a kid when I went to Albany, where I met you, where I went to Albany to advocate for the continuation of the Mitchell-Lama housing program, the greatest affordable housing program in humankind. You give me a chance to build an administration that has that capacity, we're going to do big things, because we have no choice. We have to do big things.
Well, it's time for a break, but we'll be right back. We're back with Scott Stringer. I have to ask you this question. No Democrat has defeated an incumbent Democratic mayor in a primary since David Dinkins beat Ed Koch. And as you'll probably recall, that was because Yusuf Hawkins, a 16-year-old black teenager, was killed right before the primary. What makes you think that you can defeat a sitting Democratic mayor in a Democratic primary?
First, history suggests that incumbent mayors actually lose. Abe Beame lost when he was running.
But he lost to, I mean, all right, I get it.
Right?
Yeah.
David Dinkins did lose.
But David Dinkins lost to a Republican.
Yes, but look.
In the general election, not the primary.
Yeah, but there's always new ground. There's always the upset. You know, what I love about politics is everybody writes off the candidate who can't win, and then that candidate wins, and then the headlines scream, surprise. When I was running against Eliot Spitzer, I was 20 points behind with 3 weeks to go. They were writing my political obituary. I don't think you were, but I think a lot of people...
I thought you were going to win, actually.
Actually, you did, but most people didn't, and I won. We worked hard. We raised issues. Eliot Spitzer was a very competitive opponent. But here's the thing. If you don't run, you don't win. If you run, you may not win. That's what Jesse Jackson said a generation ago.
But if you don't run, you never have a chance.
Exactly. So why don't we look at ways to have a competitive primary and debate the issues? There's no incumbent protection when we don't have a city in good financial shape. And I think people want a manager. I think they want someone with a vision. But also, I know the health of this city, the fiscal health of this city, like the back of my hand. So I put that forward. Voters will either agree or they'll say, no, we want to stay the course.
So last time around, you lost because of sexual allegations, sexual misconduct allegations that were made against you. Is that still going to be an issue in this campaign, and what's your response to it?
Look, New Yorkers every day come up to me and they say, you know, I voted for you, or I wish I did. Right now, those allegations, which are totally false, we're in court proving that. And I'm going to let the court case play out, because I do think we're going to be able to prove that this was not the case, and we'll see what happens. I'm not going to litigate it in the press publicly. And look, I want voters to remember, those who know of my career, I was a leader in the fight to pass important domestic violence legislation. I authored and co-sponsored the New York Stalking Act. I have fought for women on pay equity issues and the like. I'm a pro-choice Democrat. So I'm not going to be derailed because of a false allegation. I'm going to double down, make my case. And I think voters want to talk about housing, education. I think they want to talk about, can I afford to stay in this city? The rent is too damn high. That was another mayoral candidate, not me. And I think we have to address these issues. Who better than someone with the kind of experience I have?
But what about the federal investigation of the mayor and his campaign finance actions? Do you think that's going to be a factor when it comes time to people to vote?
My view of that is innocent until proven guilty. No charges have been brought. I think you let the investigation play out, but that's not why I'm running for mayor. I'm not sitting on the sidelines, Marcia, you know, rooting for something legally to happen to the mayor. That's pretty, to me, that's wrong. I'm running because I think I could be the best mayor the city has ever seen. I think my moment to make a difference, to cap what I have done as assembly member, borough president, comptroller. I'm not waiting for Eric Adams to get hit by something. I'm running because I want to debate him one-on-one about the vision of the city. And I think he will meet that challenge as well. We've got to do that. So I'm not here because of a federal investigation.
There's the big controversy right now over the mayor's decision to veto the How Many Stops Act. Would you have vetoed it?
Well, look, this is part of the problem. The fact is that we have too many stop and frisk complaints. 97% of stop and frisks are people of color. So I understand that the city council wants data to hold police accountable. But we also have to compromise on this. We have to make sure that the police have enough time to do their job,
so
and we can't hamper the. Well, I think the compromise is going through what data we can get and what data do we actually need, and then really do an analysis of how much this bill will impact policing. Look, if I were mayor, this bill wouldn't happen because, one, the data on stop and frisk would be public. The budget data that turned out to be a bunch of lies would be public. I would be negotiating with Speaker Adams, who is a very rational, smart person who understands the art of negotiation, and I would be building a relationship with the city council so we don't waste time on these bills that at the end of the day could have been sorted out before.
But see, on the one hand, the mayor makes a point that if you have to report every stop, like say you're investigating a crime and you knock on somebody's door, it's just to find out, like, was the guy next door home? But you have to then fill out a report. He says it wastes a lot of time. And where's the compromise so that people in the police department have the actual time to investigate cases when they're not making stops just because they're being,
because you sit at the table and you go through these concerns, and I have concerns that the police should not be tied down in. So
you would have vetoed this bill?
I would not be in a position where we have to veto it. I would have worked this out already. I think you have to work things out, because now what do we have? We have two things that are happening in the city. The first was the mayor's budget dance with himself. So he basically made up numbers to tell us that the migrants are destroying the city and it's the end for migrants. Meanwhile, we have little kids sleeping in schools with blankets on the floor, and the mayor comes by and says, look at these
That was
immigrants.
Just one night.
Yeah, but you should see the shelter system. And we need to investigate the shelter system, not just for migrants, but for homeless New Yorkers who've been there a long time.
You know, the migrant problem is a problem for New York, with all the people who have come here and don't have jobs, don't have the ability to work, and we have a right to shelter law. How do you feel about the right to shelter law? The mayor wants it changed. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with it?
Look, my grandparents came to this city. This is a city of immigrants, a city of migrants. I just want to remind everybody that a kid who's sleeping in a migrant shelter today is the Pulitzer Prize winner tomorrow. The same kid who is struggling and not getting enough to eat is the same lawyer. So right to shelter is good, or right to shelter is bad? Right to shelter is a powerful message that says New York is a city of immigrants. See, the mayor blamed the migrants on the budget crisis. He actually said the city.
Well, it was a big cost of the migrants.
The city, he said basically the city's going to hell because of migrants. But that was only 3 days a week. Then he did love migrants, you know, on a couple of other days. So who do you believe? It's time for someone who has real financial experience to take the reins of the city.
So you're saying
and
that
level with
New
Yorkers.
Too much on the contracts.
I think they're spending too much on the game and not enough on solving the problem. And I don't think they were ready or had capacity to deal with whether it's migrants or other issues. And I think that's part of the problem. I think we have to level with New Yorkers. And by the way, how do you have a state of the city message after basically blaming the migrants for everything under the sun? You give a very nice state of the, with a beautiful.
Well, he's trying to get his re-election campaign.
Okay, but well, he has now a re-election campaign that he's got to get going. But at the same time, you don't mention migrants? How is that even possible?
So one last, because we have about 30, 40 seconds left.
Yeah.
So sanctuary city, should we continue to be a sanctuary city where we welcome everybody, or do we say we just can't afford it?
We should be a sanctuary city. We are a sanctuary city. And look, when I'm mayor, we're going to go have a new compact with Joe Biden because he's going to talk to me. We're going to go to Albany.
What's your skill that you're going to get him to talk to you?
Because this is what I've done all my life. 3 university expansions. I've worked with Republican legislators when the Republicans controlled the Senate. I've been able to do big things on divesting from fossil fuel. Who does that? I took every labor union and we made one investment meeting in the comptroller's office. Everyone said it couldn't be done. Bloomberg tried to do it. No one accomplished it except me. I've audited every city agency time and time again. Did 19 audits of NYCHA. I know how this government works.
Okay, and on that note, I hate to cut you off, but we have to leave it right there for now. But our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York.